The recovery of sub-Saharan Africa has been abruptly stopped. The previous year saw a recovery in activities which increased GDP growth for 2021 to 4.7%. However, growth in 2022 was predicted to decline significantly by more than 1% to 3.6% as a result of a global slowdown, tighter financial conditions, and a steep increase in global inflation, which would affect a region already weary from a string of shocks. Africa's economic houses had a tough 2022, with inflation reaching 33.9% in August and the cedi depreciating. Ghana has asked the IMF for assistance. This year, growth is expected to decline to 3.5%, down from an April forecast of 5.5%. And the World Bank has reduced its growth projections for South Africa and Nigeria from 2.1% and 3.3% to 1.9% and 3.3%. Cote d'Ivoire was projected to be West Africa's fastest growing economy in 2022 at 5.7%, but Senegal is set to overtake it, expanding 4.8% this year before speeding up to 8% in 2023 and 10.5% in 2024. The forecast for Kenya, East Africa's largest economy, was kept the same at 5%. This morning, joining me is Samuel Oyekanmi, who is a senior research analyst at Nairametrics, to explain what's been happening to the top 7 fastest growing economies in sub-Saharan Africa, according to the IMF. Thank you so much, Samuel, for joining this conversation.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Now, according to IMF, Senegal's economy is set to expand more than any other African economy for the year 2023. What are the key sectors that are expected to drive this growth?
Well, it's not surprising to see Senegal on top of the list, considering the level of stability that they have enjoyed over the years. Well, apart from the outlying periods of COVID-19 and then the Russia-Ukraine war, that of course affected the global economy. The projected growth actually is following a relatively favorable balance base period now. If you recall that they grew by 6.1% in 2021, and then a projected slow growth of 4.7% in 2022, and now they're expected to grow by 8.1% in 2023. But if you look at the numbers and also the fundamentals of the economy, you see that ease of doing business of Senegal has improved compared to 2019 levels. The service sector has also remained robust, which is actually the larger chunk of the economy of Senegal, accounting for a huge part of the nation's GDP. While, of course, agriculture of major driver of the GDP growth. And then again, come to their oil sector, which has been doing well relatively in recent time, especially for their first oil project that is expected to kick off in 2023. That's the Sangomar field development, and also the Greater Torture GTA gas project, also that is being constructed around Mauritania and Senegal. Also in 2023, we see this actually having a significant effect, positive effect on the growth of the Senegal economy. So in my opinion, I would say yes, service sector, agriculture, and then oil and gas.
So what about Niger Republic? It has a projected growth of 6.5% to about 7.2%. So which sectors look promising aside agriculture?
Well, should be said, the major sector that has always been driving the economy of Niger Republic has always been agriculture, but not to take away credit from other areas of the sector. But of course, like I said, agriculture, and that's why you see that a lot of attention has been directed to agriculture by the public sector, and that is in line with the new 3N agricultural initiative by the government, I think about 2 years ago. But then we've seen a lot of public spending by the government in infrastructure. We've seen increased foreign direct investment also in Niger, especially in the extractive sector, the mining sector, and all that has been having a positive effect on the economy. Also, again, crude oil prices in recent time also, they also trade crude oil domestically. That has also have contributed positively to the growth of the economy of Niger Republic.
All right, let's talk about Rwanda. IMF said that Rwanda has a projected growth of 6.7% from 6.0%. So are we looking at a regional accelerated growth that Rwanda is championing, or this is just Rwanda for Rwanda in terms of its policies and being able to use those policies to transform its economy?
Yeah, interesting question. In my own opinion, I would say it's a mix of both regional and individual resilience, right? So if you recall in COVID-19, the Eastern African countries, which Rwanda is part of, we are the only regions on the African continent that did not record an aggregate recession, largely due to the growth recorded by the likes of Ethiopia, Tanzania, Kenya, Djibouti, and the likes. But then the factors contributing to this growth, they are not really far-fetched when you consider the fact that they have a highly diversified service sector, which has also made them less prone to shocks like the Russia-Ukraine, COVID-19. They also have very huge public spending on infrastructure, on agri sector, and they recorded a growth in the agri sector in 2021. That's despite the fact that it also suffered from some natural disasters. But again, for Rwanda, again, you say they also have some plans. You don't forget that they have a plan to achieve high-income country status by 2050 and then to move to the middle-income status by 2035. And they've also channeled a lot of their attention towards establishing their economy in order to grow at a faster pace. And I think that is also reflecting in their numbers. These strategies have helped to bring some relatively growth in their economy, although from their fiscal side, we're already seeing some trickling down in those numbers because most of the economy is driven by public spending. And when you have that, the chances are you're going to have high debt, you're going to have very high fiscal deficit, and it's already affected. So when you consider, you see in 2021, they grew by over 10%, and right now their projections are relatively below around 7% and 6%. So it does give you an idea that, well, yes, they did well in 2021, and from that growth, there is already a trickling down, mostly likely due to government spending in strategic sectors of the economy.
All right, now the Democratic Republic of Congo is also having a projected and encouraging economic projection, as it were. It is said that it will also grow to about 6.7%. But then we've heard issues of conflict, civil unrest, killings in and around the country, and that could be debilitating for the country's economy. Do you think that DRC will be able to sustain this growth? And if it chooses to join the East Africa community, do you think there'll be any sort of benefits for the country?
Yeah, well, I think no economy in the world wants to operate in isolation, and no economy can thrive in isolation, except for the likes of Russia in recent times. So I think it's going to be a good one for DRC to move towards, right, towards the Eastern African countries, which is also going to help them spur growth. But you cannot grow an economy where you're suffering from either civil unrest or some level of insurgency in your environment or your economy as a whole. So I think it's going to do them a lot of benefits if, by all regards, they try to mellow down or try to reduce every form of insurgent actions or insecurity in the regions. I think that's going to help spur foreign investment. It's also going to help spur intra-regional trade, and then even inter-African countries trade also is going to help them, and we could see that also doubling down in their numbers.
All right, let's touch down on Côte d'Ivoire now. This economy is said to be very, very resilient starting from 2019. Well, the end of 2019 when the pandemic started up to 2020, 2021. It's been said that the Côte d'Ivoire economy has been very, very strong and able to maintain and sustain its momentum as the case may be. Do you think they'll be able to replicate this kind of resilience in 2023?
So when you look at the areas of the economies of the economy that contributed to the growth of Côte d'Ivoire, you see the likes of the agri sector, agri exports, specifically mining, generally the extractive sector, as well as the manufacturing industries, transportation, trade, and telecoms. Although in recent times we've seen that higher prices and lower consumer spending have also reflected, has also more or less reduced the pace of the growth. But then growth is expected, the inflation is expected to moderate because right now we're beginning to see the year-on-year moderation in inflation. We expect to see that from January going forward. And I think that is also going to have a positive effect on Côte d'Ivoire. And that's why we're still saying that it's enough for them to still maintain one of the top fastest growing economies in Africa. Then international trade also can also play a major role in the country's economic growth. We've already seen that the president, in person of Alassane Ouattara, was trying to bridge the diplomatic relations with Mali earlier in the week, and it just gives you an idea that the economy or the country now, the president also sees the fact that international trade is going to play a very important role in the growth of the economy going forward. I see that also having a very significant effect, aside the likes of, well, agriculture exports, which is also reliant on diplomatic relations with other African nations, mining generally, and then manufacturing, converting your raw items rather than being an exporter of raw items. We would want to see a lot more transformation in the industrial sector. I think that's also going to pave a lot of way in the economy going forward.
All right, Benin Republic has one of the strongest economic growth rates of plus 7.2%. That's an increase of plus 3.4%. Now, what would you say are the areas or the key sectors that are actually pushing the economy towards a positive trajectory? Is it because of the size? Because some people say that the smaller the size, the easier to manage. Or there are some other areas that you would consider that you feel that other African countries can take a cue from?
Yeah, well, for Benin Republic, right, it's really not far-fetched. So when you look at the landscape, the fact that they have a lot of porting activities, and you look at their numbers, they enjoyed positive numbers in 2021 on the back of growth in the agricultural sector, and specifically on increased port activities. And you remember that was around the time that the president of Nigeria, Buhari, ordered the reopening of its land borders, which Benin Republic now has suffered since 2019. But in 2021, it actually helped spur robustness, especially in the international trade porting activities, and we saw a lot of that help. Tourism is also a very key area for Benin Republic, which has also helped contribute to strategic growth in the economy. Taking a cue from them by African countries, I would say African economies should trust, well, the African economy itself, or the African countries themselves should actually be tourist environment. And I think we need to also start channeling a lot of investment in our tourist sector. I think that's probably going to be key. And then again, its service and construction sector in the past 2 years has also recorded reasonable growth, and we should expect. And then when again, if you look at these countries that were listed by the IMF, you see there are some key sectors that are quite that they have in common. And then when you look at the fact that the country spent a lot on construction, we're having a lot of activities in the service sector, especially the likes of fintechs and other techs that are coming up. And I think those are areas that other African countries could take a cue and want to copy from. And with that, I see us having some relatively even growth.
Okay, just about a minute. I'd like to know, in terms of regional cooperation and policies, now, how do you think these top 7 economies can galvanize and synchronize their economic strength and potential to bring about growth for the African continent? Just in about a minute, please.
So like what I said earlier, I said we have some sectors that these countries have in common. And I think that's where we need to start coming together and playing as one. And that was what the African Continental Free Trade Agreement was supposed to help spur the likes of trade, service sector, fintech. We've been having a lot of what I call it partnership now between African countries and African companies in the tech space. We need to start seeing that in other strategic sectors of the economy. And I think with that, we should expect some level of even growth across the region. But we do not expect economies to just operate in isolation. There needs to be a level of communication and partnership between the countries in the region. And I think that's going to help. Let's just pick the sectors and have some form of partnership across board for each of those strategic sectors, and we'll be seeing some relative growth across board.
Definitely, partnerships can drive and accelerate the kind of growth that Africa is hoping for, and we hope they will be able to take a cue from this. Thank you so much, Samuel, for joining this conversation.
Thank you very much.
As sub-Saharan Africa navigates through the lingering impact of various socio-economic challenges, well, a glimmer of hope resides in its mineral potentials, critical policies if implemented well, and of course the ability to coordinate efforts in order to service their debt and attract foreign investments can help guarantee the kind of economic growth that Africa and of course these top economies are looking and hoping for in the year 2023. That's it on today's edition of Business Edge. You can follow us on our social media platforms at New Central TV. You can head to our websites www.newcentral.africa and download our mobile app on App Store and Play Store. Until next time, my name is Lekan Onabanjo. Have a wonderful and a lovely weekend.